as I'm sure you know, the rabbit hole is just vast. Absolutely massive. But one of the things I researched that was absolutely fascinated me was the SirToshi affair, and there was this character in there called the mysterious Stefan Matthews. And I was like, who is this guy? Who is this mysterious
you found
Stefan
him.
Matthews? Yeah. Well, this. Have you read the SirToshi affair? It's online.
Of course. Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
Actually,
brilliant story.
I want to talk about that because
Good, me too.
it was a strange time in late 2015 and through 2016, and some peculiar and puzzling things happened. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what position you take on this, I was a witness to just about all of it. All of the things that occurred, the meetings that occurred.
Well, you got Craig out of Australia, didn't you, when the ATO were after him?
Well, I don't know whether I actually got Craig out of Australia, but I happened to be in Australia at the time, it wasn't me that actually got him out of Australia. It was more his wife that got him out of Australia. But he and I did rendezvous 2 days later in the Philippines, because I was on a flight back to the Philippines, and he flew via a couple of other cities and met me in the Philippines and spent a couple of days with me before he flew on to London, and then met up with his wife in London because she'd flown through to the UK. But that was an interesting time.
Oh, it was sad. The story was incredible. Like, incredible. I mean, did you understand the significance of what you were involved in at the time?
Yeah, I think I did. Craig and I go back to 2005. So I saw things and had discussions with Craig in 2007, 2008, when Bitcoin was being created. He wanted me to be more interested in the development of the technology than what I was interested in being involved.
How did he first pitch it to you?
Well, I've
got some magic internet money for you.
No, nothing like that at all.
I was going to say that would have been a terrible pitch.
I was the CIO of a company. The way we met was that Craig was working for a company called BDO, and he was working in their digital forensics audit division in Sydney, and I'd engaged BDO to do an audit of our control systems. We were running the company was Centrebet, and we were running a licensed
gambling operation,
online sports bet, right? In Australia, and we were going through an IPO. So we engaged BDO to do a control system and security audit. And when the partner, who was based in Melbourne, flew up to Sydney to introduce his audit team, I'm sitting in the boardroom, and he had three guys with him. One was Craig Stephen Wright. And
what was your first impression?
Well, he was a normal auditor. He was sitting there with a three-piece suit and tie on, and if it quacks and waddles or whatever, it's probably a duck. And he looked like an auditor to me. So, I got to know him through that process. And because the partner, it's like when you do an audit, there's things you need to follow up on, and works programs. And Craig was the nominated guy on the BDO side who was the main liaison point for BDO. So, he was regularly in my office. And then you know, uh, over time, he started talking to me about things and talking to me about ideas and running things, you know, past me. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I couldn't work out what he was doing, and I wasn't interested. But, you know, with the passage of time, you come to understand what all these, what looked at the time like absolutely unrelated ideas were actually part of a bigger picture that he was.
He must have been in his mid-30s then, was he, about that?
Yeah, probably.
Right.
He was a good-looking bloke then, good-looking young man. So, you know, and in 2008, you know, he started showing me more detailed stuff and writings and pieces of what I recall to be versions of the white paper.
Did you take was this interesting, or were you just kind of like amusing him at the time?
I was half interested, but you know, I had other things on my plate at this stage. You know, we did our IPO in 2006, and we were at the stage in 2008. We were starting to get involved in other projects with other parties, and I had a lot of priorities related to the business. I didn't have time, and two, you know, well, you've met Craig. You can sit down with Craig and have a conversation, and in half an hour he'll move through 27 topics, and you sit there and you go, what the hell is the connection between he's over here and he's up here and he's down there and he's over there, and it was difficult to piece together. But you know, he spoke to me at the time in January when Bitcoin was launched, and you know, said, you know, my idea has now been launched, and then, you know, he tried to.
Is that what he actually said to you? My idea has been launched. I mean, that's quite that's quite bold of him, considering how important it was to stay. To stay like pseudonymous for such a long time. He must have trusted you.
No, he used the Bitcoin term to me before it was launched, and after it was launched. And he, in 2009, he wanted me to get actively involved again, and I just said no. In fact, I'll be honest, and I've said this to a number of close friends. You know, I told him in 2008, I don't want to get involved. This idea is not going to amount to anything. And that's what I truly thought at the time. But and time
what did you think it was then when you said it's never going to amount to anything? What was your sort of?
I knew what it was. I knew what it was. You know, digital cash, because you know, he was talking for 12 months. He was talking to me about all different concepts around e-cash, digital cash, et cetera, and you know, he thought this was something I should be deeply interested in because I was working in the online gaming sector. But I wasn't at the time, and I remained, you know, unenthusiastic about it. And I left Australia in early 2010. We actually sold the Centrebet business was sold to Sporting Bet in the UK. And I left and I moved to London to take up a different position. And Craig and I didn't talk to each other for 2 or 3 years, and it was I was sitting in the Philippines actually, because I moved from London to the Philippines. I knew he had done work for the company because I had taken a guy with me from Australia into the other business, and he approached me a couple of times and said, do you mind if I engage Craig to do some forensic work? And I said, no, it's fine with me. I'll sign off on that. But, you know, I didn't engage with Craig directly.
I've just looked at Bitcoin Peace today. That was the 22nd of May 2010. So Bitcoin, that's when Bitcoin sort of first developed a price off of exchanges kind of thing.
Well, at that stage, I would have been in London. So Craig contacted me yeah, I'm going to say late 2014.
Right.
And I was surprised because I asked him how he got my mobile number, and he said I got it from our mutual friend in the UK. So long story short, he and I ended up meeting up, and he said to me, I've got a number of personal issues that are brewing here in Australia, and I want some advice, and I would value your opinion. And there's very few people that I would value their opinion, and you're one of them.
Mm.
And when someone says that to you, you can feel the rope tightening, can't
you? Yeah.
So one thing led to another, and I actually had a personal reason for being in Australia a couple of months later. So he and I met. We talked about the whole Bitcoin journey and where it had been and where it was. And I had
this is in 2014, was it?
It was when we met and had that conversation. It would have been in somewhere in Q1 of 2015.
Oh, so it had an exchange price then.
Oh yeah, and I knew exactly what it was. I'd seen a documentary when I was living in London about Bitcoin. There were a number of people camped out in a forest somewhere with their mobile phones transacting this digital cash, and I just sat there and I looked at it and I went, I can't believe that they're even doing this. Because I remember, I took back to when Craig was trying to get me involved, and I sat there and I still at that stage said, this will never amount to anything. But I did get interested in the blockchain technology, and of course, I wasn't one of those people that would sit there and say that blockchain's great, but Bitcoin's trash, because you can't separate the two.
That's right. Well, if it's any consolation, my mother tried to engage me in conversation once about Bitcoin. She goes, I've just read this thing in the newspaper about this thing called Bitcoin. Everyone's celebrating because it's nearly hit $1. I was like, yeah, and that regrettable moment. You're like,
Yeah. So anyway, I had lunch and I had a dinner with Craig in Sydney, and I listened to his situation, and I asked him a magic question. I said, mate, I can go away and I can come back and give you advice, but it's no good me telling you what I think or what my advice is if it doesn't fit with your personal objectives. So I said, the question is, what do you really want to do in life?
Deep and meaningful.
What do you want to do? And
have you seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
No. Oh yeah, I have, but I don't remember that line if it was in it.
Yeah, Robin Williams says, "What do you want to do?"
Yeah. Well, he said to me without hesitation. He said, Stefan, I'm no good at running companies. I'm no good at managing people. I'm no good at dealing with banks, accountants, lawyers, HR, administration. He said, I just want to sit in a room and create things and then hand it all over to other people to do whatever they do with it. And I said, let me ponder that. And of course, what grew out of that was nChain.
Yeah. Chief scientist and all that. He loves it.
Yeah, I said to him, we can sort all the things out in Australia, but this isn't the place to be. We can set up a research operation in the UK. You and the family move to the UK. You can work from home, do what you want to do, go into the office when you need to go into the office for whiteboard sessions with the scientists and the PhDs. And I've never seen Craig happier.
Well, I actually think he's even more happier now than I've ever seen him since I've known him. Like literally, the last interview he did, he was like laughing and joking and smiling. I was just like, wow.
Well, he went through a tough period in 2016-17 through that period. He was buffeted and attacked from all sides.
Yeah.
I spoke to a guy who interviewed me in Toronto, actually, a few years ago, and he said, what do I think about Craig's, explosiveness and personality and so forth, and I didn't know Craig had Asperger's at that stage, and I said, mate, if I put myself in his shoes, I don't know how I'd handle it. I mean, it's pretty tough being called out by everybody publicly. I don't think I could handle that. And I got to also say that some of the people that have worked with me and Craig, especially at nChain, a couple of people have said to me, Jesus, Stefan, the man's a genius. What would you give to have his intellect? And I've said, absolutely bloody nothing, because there's no way that I would have wanted to have put myself through the traumas that Craig's had to endure over the years.
Yeah. I know that I saw a program once on people that can remember every day of their lives, and they said one of the worst parts is that you can't ever forget the bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's just always there.
Yeah. So let's get back to the SirToshi affair. I had no idea what was going to be written. It wasn't meant to happen the way that it did, but
can you tell us your version of events? I mean, it was. I mean, either way. I mean, it was just
if I told you my version of events, we'd be here till Friday. But feel
free. I've got all the time in the world.
But having read it the day that it was released, I put it down at the end of the session, and I went, it's pretty accurate.
Right.
Yeah. Often these things have got a number of distortions in there that don't accurately reflect the truth or the reality of the situation. But I would say that 85% of it, based on my recollection of events, is pretty accurate. The author can use, as authors do, language to emphasize certain things, like the Men in Black and the ever reliable Stefan and whatever. But
the mysterious Stefan.
The mysterious Stefan. That's how people write. I mean, that's perfectly fine. That doesn't distort or not reflect the truth, or the reality. But I would say 85% of it was pretty damned accurate. There was, I took exception to a couple of points where certain comments were attributed to me personally in one or two meetings, and I, to be honest, I wasn't even at those meetings. I know where I was. I was in another location with somebody else, but I didn't worry about that too much. I mean, occasionally those things slip into the storyline, and that's how it is. But it was pretty accurate.
Did you? There are a few. I mean, one of the reasons I enjoyed reading it so much is because obviously since I've discovered Bitcoin, I've realized that my forte is the fundamental side, because the technicals are just like speed, cost, and scale, and they're effectively sort of infinite because they're constantly being improved. Whereas the fundamentals kind of like go down the rabbit hole, and then when you get to the bottom, there's effectively this paradox that you have to understand. But once you've understood it, you can grow from that. And so having understood the paradox about how important it was for him to stay hidden for that 10-year period, because it's the neutral growth of the network without that central point of authority, control, or influence that gives it its fundamental value. When I was reading the SirToshi affair, about the part where he was like hiding in the cupboards on the stairs, of his building, like hiding in the toilet cubicles, when the officers came in, when he was going through the airport, and there was like some, religious chap, like, kicking off about the customs officers wanting to search his wife and stuff like that. I was just like, any one of those moments would have completely undermined the Bitcoin project, like completely. So I was literally reading it with like sweaty palms. I was like, this is great.
Well, I wasn't at the airport, but I was in Sydney, and I did get a phone call to say that actually I was at the airport getting ready to board a flight to leave Australia, and I got a phone call from the office to say, have you seen the Wired and Gizmodo reports? And I went, what are you talking about? And they said, have a look now. So I said, hang on, I'll call you back. I went, oh my God, because the guys from I can't remember which one it was, Wired or Gizmodo, but one of them at least, if not both, was sending emails to Craig for about 3 weeks, asking
Wired magazine
Craig,
seems to be the most dominant player in the story.
Yeah, and they wanted Craig to interview Craig, to get his version of events as they had been reported to them. Oh. And Craig asked me what to do, and I took advice from others, and the consensus was do nothing. And the reason the view was do nothing is because it was considered that on a story of this magnitude, there's no way that they would publish without having corroboration from Craig.
Right.
But of course they did.
Yeah.
And they both published on the same day, almost at the same time, and simultaneously, and I do mean simultaneously in the real meaning of the word, there was a raid that occurred at the office by the Australian Federal Police. So, I left the airport and went back to the office to try to sort out what was going on, and that's when I found out that Craig. I got a call from I can't remember whether it was Craig or Ramona, to say that the federal police, because Craig had left his house, and all of the contents of the house had shipped to the UK some weeks before, and they were living in a serviced apartment, and somehow the search warrant or the police also attended the serviced apartment in the city, and of course that's where they got a phone call from the lobby to say the federal police were on their way up. So Craig went and hid, and then of course I spoke to lawyers to find out what the right thing to do was, and they said, look, Craig was leaving Australia anyway, and there is nothing illegal in him proceeding and doing that. There's it's a search warrant. Just comply with the terms of the warrant and let them have whatever information, documents, whatever they wanted to take from the office, and Craig should just proceed with the plan. So, in very simple terms, that's what occurred. But of course, there was a bit of a frantic period there, and he boarded the flight for New Zealand and then proceeded to go to Hong Kong and Manila to meet up with me so that I could sit down with him and go, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. Start from the beginning.
Yeah. And of course, I was worn out. Craig stayed with me, and I've got 2 teenage sons up there at that stage, and he had his laptops with him, and they sat up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with Craig. I went to bed, and they sat up all night with Craig, and he gave them a full history lesson on Bitcoin, the development of the Bitcoin code. And I wake up in the morning and go, how are you guys? They said, oh, we're going to bed now. And by the way, Dad, he's awesome. I went, what the hell are you talking about?
Brilliant. I mean, So did you get to the bottom of if you just got up? I mean, was Craig off the bed as well, or did he continue with his stories telling you what was going on?
He didn't sleep.
Wow.
He didn't sleep. he was, sending emails and doing stuff. He didn't sleep, and I think he slept at my place that night, the second night, and then the next day he boarded the plane to the UK.
So what was going on in your mind at that time? I mean, were you thinking, right, look, I know this guy, he seems legit, never done anything wrong. What on earth is happening? What's he created?
Well, there's two parts to that. There's the part as to why there was a search warrant and why the federal police were raiding the office and so on and so forth. And that was to do with that was primarily to do with the tax office. And, my personal view was that their allegations were unfounded. And I spent a lot of time going through the records of things and, the audit letters and everything else. In very simple terms, Craig didn't steal any money from anyone. Yeah. And there was a...
Is that what they were alleging or trying to insinuate?
Well, you see, the problem was this. Craig had set up like 16 companies or thereabouts in a group to do research. And I never fully understood why he had to have 16 companies, but his idea was, well, every idea needed a company.
Right. Okay.
And then he applied. The Australian government had then announced that they were increasing the R&D investment grant rebate scheme, and to be able to get to be able to register for that, you needed to go through a process of putting your research ideas to Oz Industry and getting it approved. And then if you had an approved idea, you could make investment for research. And then at the end of the year, what you spent on that research, you could claim back through it was the tax office that was appointed to actually make the payments. So if you spent $1 on research, you got roughly 50 cents in the dollar back. Mm-hmm. And the first year that he put in his claim, it wasn't such a large amount, and the payment was made. The second year that he put in his claim, it was a significantly higher amount, and they went, hang on, who is this bloke? So then they started wanting to know what these projects were. And when the tax office comes to audit, they send auditors, and you've got to sit down with the auditors and you've got to answer questions. Well, of course, Craig doesn't suffer fools, does he? So he created enemies at a personal level that he didn't need to.
Right.
And he should have known better than to behave like that, because he was an auditor himself.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right, but nonetheless, he basically told them they were fucking morons and didn't understand what they were looking at.
Well, it's probably true.
It was probably true, but you don't have to tell them. So,
and that's the Asperger's coming out.
Yeah. So then, of course, they go, well, we're not going. Where are your bank statements? Well, some of these payments were made with Bitcoin. Yeah, but we want a bank statement and we want a check button. Well, this is Bitcoin. I can give you the payment addresses and you can check it.
Yeah.
And of course, the arguments blew up from there, and it got out of control. So, what do? They say, okay, well, we're not going to approve these transactions as a deductible, and therefore we're not going to pay your claim. But on top of that, because you've been such a nice guy to deal with, we're going to give you a 200% penalty notice. And of course, that's where it all comes from. So,
right, got you.
That's in very simple terms. So that's one side of it. The other side of it was what Wired and Gizmodo did, and that didn't worry me so much because Craig is Craig, and Craig was Satoshi, and Craig invented this technology, and I knew that. So I knew that at some point we had to deal with that, but Craig wasn't ready to deal with it. And it was, when you're not ready to deal with something and a third party forces you, and especially if you're, the type of personality that Craig is, that didn't sit well either. So I had both those things to deal with. The tax office thing was much easier to deal with. And the obligations of the Australian companies were much easier for me to sort out. I mean,
Sounds like you're playing the role of a PR agent.
No, much more than that. I mean, in putting nChain together, I spent 9 months, actually probably closer to 12 months, working directly with a team of about 8 lawyers from Baker and McKenzie in Australia. And we combed through all the research and assets of the Australian companies that were acquired. That was the foundation pieces of nChain, and structured the nChain. I worked with bakers in Australia and bakers in London. Took advice from them as to how to move, how to acquire intellectual property at arm's length. I didn't want to short circuit anything. I wanted everything to be done properly. So it was a long, expensive process, but a lot of good came out of it. I then spent time in the infancy of nChain in London as the CEO of that group for a couple of years.
What year did that start? Was that 2017, 2016?
Really, June 2015. I think it was the 29th of June 2015. We entered into a term sheet on the deal, and shook hands and signed some papers, and then I spent the rest of the year working with bakers to make it happen. But in the meantime, Craig and Ramona had gone to London and looked at potential properties, and we'd worked out how to apply for visas and permits and all those types of things. And so it was probably around about October that they moved out of their house or thereabouts. But it wasn't until mid-December that Wyden Gizmodo and the raids occurred. And of course, in the media, it was painted that Craig was on the run from the federal authorities and had fled Australia, which was so far from the truth. It was just ridiculous.
And had you read the white paper by then?
I read the white paper in 2008 before it was published.
Ah, okay. Well, some of the guys, obviously I suppose techie guys, when they read it, they seem to have read the white paper and grasped the concept immediately and just gone, wow, Byzantine, general's problem solved, the double spend solved. Obviously paradox of centralized starting point, but kind of like the issue of privacy and anonymity solved. Did the kind of like the gravity of what the technology that you were looking at not sort of like register at the time, or were you just kind of like still in two minds as to whether or not it was the entire concept was viable?
I wasn't in two minds.
Yeah.
I understood what I was reading, because it wasn't as if I was reading something I'd never heard about before. I was reading something that was a culmination of, 20 or 30 discussions that I'd had with Craig over quite, almost a year. So, what hit me more than anything was that I now understood what all the component pieces were designed to do. It didn't strike me at all that there was anything earth-shattering in the design or the solution. I just felt that it was an interesting it was an interesting innovation that didn't have legs.
Did you view it as just kind of did you just think it was like digital money?
Yes.
So was the
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
let's be honest. Even if then in 2008 I had gone, okay, now I understand the whole blockchain concept, and this is quite revolutionary. I would have. I mean, my head was, what's the application of this? And to me, there was no immediate application of what he had invented.
Yeah, I mean, you can be forgiven for that. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Well,
the entire concept of data sovereignty.
But you think about it, it wasn't for years that really became apparent, because the world changes, and he was solving. He provided a solution to issues that weren't issues yet.
Yeah, no wonder he had trouble explaining it. It's like, all right, so there's going to be a problem that I fixed, but that problem hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah,
it's not an issue just yet.
You know, one of the things that is actually true that was in the SirToshi affair, I was in the meeting where, you know, he made the statement, I think I might have even been the person that asked the question, and his response was, I set out, I designed a car, but I've only delivered the wheel. Something along those lines.
Right.
And it probably, even then in 2016, early 2016, when he made that statement, I kind of went, yeah, I know what you mean. But in all honesty, I didn't really know what he meant, but I do now. But I do now.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So was your journey down the rabbit hole gradual? I mean, do you remember? Was there an aha moment for you?
Yeah, there was. It was when I met him in Sydney in 2015, early 2015, and I spent half a day with him talking about things, because the world at that stage was a slightly different place, and my head was in a slightly different position in terms of thinking, and I really at that stage felt that I understood the implications of this technology, and that was my aha moment.
Was it something Craig said while you were sort of in conversation with him?
No, it wasn't. It was more the maturity around my thinking than anything else. I mean,
did you understand the sort of concept of data sovereignty that he created?
Yeah, yes, but it was at that point I admitted to myself that I had not fully, or to any meaningful extent, appreciated what I was looking at back in 2008. And, you know, people say to me, well, don't you wish that you did? And my answer to that is no, not at all. You know, I had an error in judgment. I misjudged things. I'm one of these people that, you know, I'm more than happy to admit that I made a mistake in judgment, and I did. But if I hadn't, what I have and what I'm doing today wouldn't exist.
Right, yeah, got you.
Because there's another story that I don't want to get into, but it is a fascinating story, and my closest personal friends know. He offered me a very significant number of coins at a very, very low price of 1 penny each.
Wow.
In 2000, very early 2009. And I told him I was happy to provide him a loan if he wanted some funding to pursue his dream, but I wasn't interested in playing in the project.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of possibilities that could have come out of that, but none of them would end up where we are today. And I'm very happy where we are today. I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I enjoy. I am privileged in the fact that I've been through. I was working and able to learn so much about what happened with the internet industry.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that the internet, as we use it today, was secured by one private key.
Yeah, well, if you look at the evolution of the industry that we call the internet, or the sector that we call the internet, and you run a parallel ruler over this industry that we call the crypto sector, there are a lot of parallels. And I certainly believe that the same changes, consolidations, mistakes, adjustments that we saw through the whole internet bubble and everything else will occur in similar ways, not identically, but similar ways in this industry.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting road, and 2016, I was sitting in rooms and I saw all the stuff that was reported and misreported in the media. I had to sit there and counsel Craig about how to deal with some of the shit that was being thrown at him day after day after day on social media.
Wow.
The sessions that involved Gavin and John, I was one of three people, depending on which session, in the room when those proof sessions occurred.
Wow.
Have I seen proof? Yes. How many times have I seen proof? At least six times. And it's just not those two names. There are other people that I could name, but I won't, because I won't breach their privacy.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, I wonder if one of Craig's statements when asked about Bitcoin was he mentioned the central banking BS. That to me has been a real light bulb moment. I mean, I've sort of had my own epiphany about Bitcoin and gone down the rabbit hole myself, and literally the things that I have discovered have blown me away, like literally blown me away. And I wonder if Craig already knew about all of these things previously, because when you have sort of like a photographic memory like he's got, you just remember everything. My memory's shot to pieces, and yet I was still able to piece together eventually, after revisiting things, what was going on in the world sort of like in the background. Whereas I wonder if Craig knew that, from the beginning, and then was dealing with the, well, I suppose you want to call it the political, don't want to get conspiratorial, but the dark forces coming out, desperate to maintain control of the world's reserve currency and all that, really.
I don't know, but what I do know is that Craig is an incredibly deep thinker, and he sees things years in advance of other people. So, go back to that statement he made, I designed a car. Now, what he means is up here, he designed a car, but what he delivered was a wheel. The rest is yet to come.
Yeah, and when did you sort of like start to realise his level of genius and intellect? When you sort of had a grasp of just how vast it was. There must have been like a change in the time from him kind of like just, you know, annoying you in your office, going, "Oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?" To then suddenly just like, "Wow," you know.
I think I started to appreciate the enormity of what he had created when I spent that 6 or 9 months in Australia doing due diligence on his companies. And because he and I spent almost every day together, and you know, I was looking at the research files, the research papers, the filings with Aus Industry, etc., etc. And I started to realize that there was a shitload more going on than the blockchain and Bitcoin. And where I really started to become, I guess it's almost in awe of the intellect of what I was dealing with, was in 2016, when even though we were going through horrific daily upheavals,
was that from social media, or just like, you know, political, legal?
It was legal. It was social media. It was internal. You know, we had very difficult situations in nChain that, you know, throughout the course of 2016, I was able to fortunately resolve, which enabled Craig to be what he is today. You know, it was during that period I just realized that you know, we'd just barely scratched the very, very tip of the inventive iceberg.
Amazing. I mean, did you get goosebumps when you sort of start to realize that? I know I did.
I've had a couple of goosebump moments.
I mean, I remember like talking about Bitcoin when I was kind of just discovering it, and literally I was like kind of like getting, you know, these like pins and needles sensations, like literally just. I mean, I don't know what the chemical was that was going on in my body, but you know, just I couldn't believe what I was discovering, you know. And for me personally, because I'm not really all that technical, I had to sort of pull on all my experiences from my life, and one of them is dealing with people with Asperger's. So when I found out that he had Asperger's, I then realised that nothing he does is ever left to chance, and it's planned meticulously. So whenever like he was giving a vague answer about something, I was just like, "There's more to that," yeah. And then I would dig in, and then I would find out why he'd done it. So for example, I found out why he'd chosen October the 31st to release the white paper. You know, why he started the network on the 3rd of January. You know, why there was that 10-year period. Why he started the Tulip Trust. I was just like, this is just absolutely sensational.
Well, you know? I've sat in meetings, particularly with lawyers, and you know, they ask Craig a question, and he'll answer the question. And I sit there and I go, I think I know what you want to know, but you're asking the wrong question. And they go, "What do you mean?" And I said, just a minute. So I walk over and I go, "Is this what you want to find out?" And they go, "Yeah." I went, "Okay, Craig, what they want to know is this." And then he'll answer that. And I said, "So now that begs the next question, the next question, the next question. You've got to go through 6 questions."
Yeah.
And then he gives them the answer that they wanted.
Yeah.
Because you can't ask Craig an open question. You've got to ask him a series of closed questions, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
It's just the way. And I learned that back at Centrebet, because, you know, my guys in my network operations area used to have problems, and he would not answer the question. And I sat him down one day and I said, "Oh, for Christ's sake, Craig, why don't you just tell them what they want to know?" And he said, because if I do that, they won't learn anything. I said, go figure. And he goes, look, it's this way. If I lead them through a series of situations and they eventually get to what they want to know, they will have learnt something along the journey. I said, we don't have fucking time for this, mate. we just give him the answer. But no, he wouldn't budge from that.
Right. I mean, I guess that's his way of I guess that's his way of also, maybe if he's Asperger's, that's his way of measuring people. Maybe.
And I mean, another thing, when I was in Sydney in 2015 and I was doing this due diligence and working with bakers, at the same time, Craig was running online classes for, I think it was Charles Sturt University as the lecturer. And he had like 250 people in his class. And I had to sit there and read reports in the media and social media saying that this was all bullshit. Craig wasn't even associated with the university. But I sat opposite him in his desk one day, watching him as the lecturer give the online class. And as strange as it may be, the student who came out of that class with the #1 highest grade, he said to me, Stefan, we should hire this guy. So I hunted, the guy was living in Queensland, and we got his contact details and called him, and I said, listen, you're a very impressive man. I'd like to, what are your plans? And he said, oh, look, I can't take a job. He said, I'm moving to the UK to do some extra extended studies in the UK. And I went, really? We're opening an office in the UK at the end of the year. How would you like to work part-time for us in the UK? And he did. And he's still associated with nChain today.
Wow. That's a stroke of luck.
Yep. So, there's a lot of rubbish that's been written. People love to discredit Craig and say, he's a liar and a fraud and all these things. He's not.
Yeah.
He might say some strange things and be appear misleading at times, but that's his personality. It's not. It's not the man he is. He's probably one of the most honest men I've ever come across.
Oh yeah. Well, did you understand the significance of him not revealing himself until the 1st of January 2020? Because he when the keys to the Tulip Trust were returned to him, because he had decided. Well, I mean, this is what I can see. The phases that Bitcoin go through was first the release of the white paper to give the starting point credibility, so that anyone and everyone had the opportunity to start it. So it's not like he sent the email to his local supermarket. Yeah, he sent it to published it on a cryptographic mailing list. Waited, well, obviously 2 months, because that's what's considered a reasonable amount of time in law. And then after that, it was the 10 years of the growth of the network without that central point of authority, control, and most importantly influence that gives Bitcoin its fundamental value. So I was just like, well, yeah, but when is that growth period come to an end? And because obviously there has to be a point where he's probably going to come out and guide the project in the way that it has to go. Particularly because if Bitcoin is centrally controlled, it cannot have any value because it can't be a commodity. So therefore, he knew that it was going to. Well, he knew that there was a very high probability it was going to be tampered with by people who realized they could take control of the network, and so the Tulip Trust was Bitcoin's insurance policy. Yeah, he was literally going to tank the market with the Tulip Trust. But I realized it was kind of like it was up until the 1st of January that prior to that time, that's why all of his answers were wishy-washy.
I had multiple conversations with Craig, obviously in late 2015 when he was being contacted by Wired and Gizmodo. And, you know, it was at that time I said to him, well, what's the problem with, you know, coming clean? And he said then, and he said it multiple times since at various stages, I will not be forced to do something. I will do what I do on my own terms when I'm ready. And, you know, one thing people close to Craig all realize, if you try to force the man down a particular path, that will end in destruction.
Yeah.
He will become resistant to the extreme.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know him well enough that type of tactic will never ever be successful in Craig's life.
But did you realise that when he says I won't be pushed, you know, to do anything until I'm ready, that he had already planned at that time when he would be ready, which would be when the keys to the tulip
he didn't have a preconceived date in his calendar or his mind. Yeah. But he did come to me and say, I'm ready to go and talk publicly, and I want to do that at Arnhem.
Right, yeah, fantastic speech.
Right, and I said, are you sure? And he said, yes, I'm sure. And of course, you'll remember that it was John Matonis that stood up on stage and introduced Craig and gave Craig his speaking slot.
Yeah, Mr. Aussie Bitcoin Dundee, wasn't it? He introduced him as.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
But it was also Craig also said, I can neither confirm nor deny that I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, but he was ready to start doing things publicly, and you know, over time, you know, he just got to a position where it was, to hell with it. You know, the various projects, BTC was in, you know, it was taken down a path that took it so far away from the original design. BCH was meant to remedy that, and personalities got involved again, as you know, and it didn't, and there were further conflicts. But he's very comfortable now that, you know, BSV is the original implementation of the design, and you know, we can sit there now and say, well, everything Craig said over the years is correct. BSV has, I'm going to use the word enormous, but you know, it has unlimited scaling capability, and you know, the transaction prices are big, you know, if they're 100th of a cent, they get lower and lower with scale. And of course, from what I can remember forever, that's what he told me. So, you know, everyone said it was wrong, that it wasn't the case. Everyone said that Bitcoin didn't have the capability of delivering smart contracts. It did, but no one knew it. You know, Vitalik went off from the BTC project and created Ethereum because he believed that Bitcoin couldn't do what he designed Ethereum to do to solve that problem, but it could.
I thought it was because he approached Blockstream and said, "Look, can I build Ethereum on top of Bitcoin?" And they said no.
Well, that was probably his original solution to delivering smart contracts and tokenization, because that's probably how he thought that it needed to be done. Otherwise, smart contracts and tokenization couldn't exist in the Bitcoin world, but they can, and they do, and they live in the BSV world. So BSV's got everything. Craig always said it had everything. The number of times he sat there, he even sat there in Sydney in 2015 and said, they're destroying my project.
Yeah. I wonder if he expected that though, because he set the Tulip Trust up as like Bitcoin's insurance policy back in 2011.
I saw the man frantic, pacing around a boardroom, pacing around the table with his hands on his head and his hand saying, my project is being destroyed. I can't sit by and watch it be destroyed. You know, this is back in 2015. He takes his creation incredibly personally.
Oh yeah. But what I'm saying is, I think he still knew that something like that was very likely to happen, because with Bitcoin, because it's accountability that keeps it neutral. So with it being accountable, it's not controlled. So then you just simply tamper with the signatures, which is what makes everybody accountable, to control the system. So I have a feeling that I think he anticipated something like that happening, but obviously couldn't foresee how it was going to play out exactly. But when it did start happening, it was just like, right, how are we gonna deal with this? But I think he knew something like that was gonna take place. He just didn't know exactly how it was going to go down.
Well, you know, he certainly saw it happening before his eyes. Whether he was able to foresee and how much he foresaw, I'm not sure. But I know he was incredibly animated around some of the individuals and personalities and what they were thinking and what they were capable of doing. And I must admit, back in mid 2015, I had hair then. I used to scratch my head and go, this sounds a bit far fetched, but it wasn't.
Well, what in what respect?
Oh, just the way he saw things unfolding, and he had a much deeper insight than I did.
Did he ever explain that to you, like what he suspected was going on?
Not in any logical form. It was more in rants and raves.
Yeah. See, I mean, one of the things. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I actually had lunch with Craig in London, and one of the reasons I was kind of wanted to meet him and have lunch with him is to just kind of like get an idea of his character, because obviously I'd seen him on stage and I'd seen him on YouTube and kind of like blowing his lid and
you've seen nothing, my friend. You've seen nothing. I've seen him in absolutely full flight.
Oh, I can imagine. But when I wasn't really too sure, what to make of him, but I was kind of like thinking, like, how can I trust that you're not gonna fly off the handle? And when I had lunch with him, I thought, I'll just kind of like test his metal a little bit and like press a few buttons. And I said, what's it like? Being answerable to these people at nChain, even though he'd sort of like you and him had set the company up and all that. And I remember specifically, like, he sat back in his chair and there was this grin that came on his face, literally like a Cheshire cat. And I knew that all this stuff that you see on it was all bravado. He was like having a whale of a time. He's like, he knew exactly what was going on. And that's when I thought, that's kind of like what made me trust him. I was like, this is genuine, because I didn't have the technical abilities to assess it. I had the sort of like at the time it was a relatively sort of shallow fundamental understanding. I had the basics, but I was kind of like putting the pieces of the jigsaw together. And for me, at the time, he was a big piece, and that particular moment kind of like fitted the bill perfectly.
You got to remember, nChain delivered the solution to his answer to my question. What do you want to do in life, Craig?
Yeah. I think
You know,
I think he wants to go down. I think what he wants to do is go and sort out all the bad guys. I think that's what he's doing. A superhero, a blockchain superhero.
I don't know.
Satoshi Nakamoto could be a superhero. You know,
it could be. You know, sometimes I sit there and you know, I live in a world where, you know, I spoke to Craig a couple of hours ago. I have a weekly catch up with him, and you know, one of the topics for this week that I wanted to catch up on was, you know, all the court cases and litigation and where all that was. And you know, there have been times over the years where I wish that these things didn't exist, but I do understand why they need to exist and why they need to take place. And I've never been anything other than supportive to Craig. I know, you know, I've lived through those years, those tough years with him. I've been through some horrible situations and discussions that we've had to have around some of these things, particularly the events of 2016. And you know, I fully appreciate where he is.
Yeah, it's been great. I've just seen. I know we had an hour booked. It's actually been an hour and a half. So I don't want to.
Tina's been staring at me through the wrist.
I thought that might be happening.
And that I take that as a significant warning signal. So.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. Honestly, I've absolutely loved it. You know, hopefully we can maybe do like a part 2, you know, or something like this later on. Certainly,
yeah,
I'm sure we'll catch up sometime after the CoinGeek conference and stuff like that.
Are you going to? Obviously, you're probably not. Are you going to be across here in Zurich for the conference?
I would love to, but I haven't planned it just because of COVID. You know, it's still kind of up in the air. You know.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there's significant processes you got to go through to get permits and so forth. It's not easy, but hopefully COVID. You know, it's not going to disappear, but hopefully things get a lot easier over the next 6 months, and you know, we can have some opportunities to catch up face to face.
Did you weren't at London, were you? The last CoinGeek in London.
I was.
Oh, were you? Were you there? Right. I didn't see you. I absolutely loved it.
You got to remember, I sneak around the place and hide in shadows.
Right. Well, see, that's what I spend my time doing at these conferences, like, you know, searching out all these people hiding in the shadows. I'm like, yeah. I know you, and I know you. Like, this is who I am. Yeah, it's great fun. Yeah, so yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Stefan. You know, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been absolutely great. So yeah, I wish you all the best with your diet and you know, health journeys and stuff like that. And
Thank you.
We'll catch up sometime soon, hopefully.
We will indeed. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye. Wow. What an amazing chat that was. That was absolutely sensational. Do you know what? I don't even think I'm going to have to...